A shy, quiet girl from a small town suddenly becomes a TikTok millionaire at 21. Not because it was her dream, but because it was her mother's unfinished one. She smiles for millions of strangers, even as something inside her withers a little more each day, until Claire uncovers the cruelest betrayal from the very woman who gave her life. Sometimes the deepest pain isn't losing your freedom, it's losing yourself. So, if you were Claire, would you keep living as someone else's creation, or dare to rise and reclaim your own life? The golden-orange light of sunset slipped through the small window, casting a soft glow over Claire's light brown hair. She sat on an old wooden chair, tilting her head as she carefully wrote in a worn leather notebook. Her left hand propped up her chin while her right glided effortlessly across the page, each small deliberate letter flowing like a dream-lit stream. A warm, steady voice drifted in, almost a whisper to the viewer. If you've ever lived to please someone else, you'll understand, Claire. Claire cherished these quiet moments. The world outside was a storm of noise and hurry, but here in her small room, she was free to lose herself in stories, free from judgment, free from pressure, free from expectations. It was just her, the page, and her imagination. Suddenly, the door creaked open. The sharp sound startled Claire. She looked up to see her mother, Linda, standing there, a phone in hand, TikTok open on the screen. Linda beamed, her face alight with the kind of excitement Claire had come to recognize all too well. The fierce, almost desperate hope of a woman who had watched her own dreams wither and was now pouring all of them into her daughter. "Claire, I have the most amazing idea," Linda said, hurrying toward the desk. Claire set her pen down, a frown tugging at her brow. "What idea?" Linda held out the phone, its screen showing a video clip. A young woman, plain yet radiant, before the camera, speaking animatedly about her favorite book. Her face glowed with an easy, effortless confidence, her eyes sparkling under soft lights. "Look," Linda said, lowering her voice as if sharing a great secret. "You could do this. I've been watching so many of these videos. You're beautiful. You have a lovely voice and you're smart. Just a few short clips sharing what you love. I know you'd be a star." Claire's fingers tightened around the edge of her notebook. Her heart hammered, caught between a flurry of nerves and a creeping dread. She'd never imagined laying her private world bare for thousands, maybe millions, of strangers. Just thinking about facing that invisible, judging crowd made her skin prickle cold. "Mum, I don't think that's for me," Claire mumbled, avoiding her mother's gaze. Linda didn't back down. She sat beside Claire, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder, her voice softening, rich with persuasion. "Claire, I know you're scared. I was your age once too." She smiled wistfully, but her eyes shone with a fierce insistence. "I used to dream of being a TV host, but life, responsibility, fear, they all got in the way. I gave up. I don't want you to make the same mistake." Claire said nothing. She loved her mother. She knew how hard Linda had worked to raise her alone without help from anyone. And she knew too about those bright, beautiful dreams her mother had abandoned, dreams that had long since crumbled into dust under the weight of everyday life. Linda squeezed her shoulder gently, her voice firm now. "Just one video, Claire. One chance to step outside your comfort zone. One chance to show me you're brave, so you don't want to disappoint me, do you?" The words hit Claire like an arrow, sharp and unrelenting. She glanced down at her notebook, her private world, her quiet, unseen stories. Part of her wanted desperately to protect it, but another part, the part wilting under her mother's desperate, pleading gaze, pushed her toward yes. Claire exhaled shakily. "Just one video, Mom." Linda's face lit up. She bustled around, setting the phone on a small tripod, adjusting the angle, fussing over Claire's hair with quick, fluttering hands. "Trust me, Claire. You're going to shine." Claire pressed her lips together, her stomach knotted tight. It felt as though she were standing at the edge of a cliff, and with just one small step, she would fall into a world she didn't recognize, with no way back. The phone screen blinked to life. Linda gave a bright-eyed nod, her silent signal for action. Claire tried to smile, just like the girls in the video she had seen. She picked up a book, her hand trembling slightly. "Hi, everyone." Her voice, soft and tentative, floated out into the fading light. Somewhere the wheels of fate began to turn, quietly, almost tenderly, but with a force that would not be undone. Claire's first video lasted barely a minute. In the cozy warmth of their small kitchen, she stood before the camera, wearing a soft cream sweater, her hair falling loosely around her shoulders. She introduced a simple recipe, blueberry muffins, a childhood favorite she had learned from her grandmother. "Hi everyone, today I'm making my all-time favorite treat from when I was little." Claire's voice was soft, earnest. When she pressed the upload button, she expected nothing. In fact, afterward, she turned off her phone and curled up on the living room couch, clutching the hem of her sweater, her nerves fraying with every passing second. Linda, on the other hand, was like an overexcited director, pacing the room, checking the phone every few minutes, letting out little shrieks of glee. "Claire, you have to see this," she cried out barely 2 hours later. Claire dragged herself over, half reluctant. She blinked at the screen, unable to believe what she saw. Over 10,000 views already, and the comments kept pouring in. "Oh my gosh, she's adorable. Her voice is like therapy. Feels like a close friend is talking to me." A strange wave surged in Claire's chest, a tangle of amazement, joy, and fear. "See, Linda?" exclaimed, wrapping Claire in a tight hug, her voice brimming with pride. "I told you, well, you have something people need." Claire gave a faint smile. Part of her swelled with pride. It was the first time she had been seen, admired by strangers. But another part of her felt as though she were standing on the edge of a vast, uncontrollable tide. It didn't take long before Linda was urging her to film another video. This time, Claire simply sat by the window, holding her favorite novel, and read a short passage aloud. No fancy lighting, no professional setups. Just Claire, raw, unguarded. That video exploded even more. Within 3 days, Claire's account had over 100,000 followers. The comments flowed like a flood. "She's like a breath of fresh air among all the noise. Every night I fall asleep to Claire reading stories." Soon messages from brands began pouring in. An organic food company offered to sponsor her. All she had to do was film herself baking with their products. "Claire, this is golden." Linda nearly leapt into the air when she read the sample contract. "One short video, and you'll earn $500. Do you realize that's more than what I make in a whole month of extra shifts?" Claire hesitated. She wasn't sure how she felt about turning her private moments into polished advertisements. But then she saw that familiar, fervent hope shining in her mother's eyes, and once again she nodded. Her first sponsored video came to life. Claire in the familiar kitchen, baking and softly mentioning the new brand with a sweet smile. Viewers loved it. No one noticed the slight stiffness in Claire's voice, the faint discomfort of slipping words into her sentences that were not entirely her own. With fame came more deals, clothing brands, cosmetics, even e-book apps. Claire quickly became the poster child for the girl next door, sweet, pure, accessible. The first big paycheck, a 5-figure deposit into Claire's bank account, left her and her mother clinging to each other, weeping with joy. "You see, Claire, I told you you could do it," Linda whispered, her voice trembling. Claire hugged her mother back, but inside, tiny flickers of doubt sparked and smoldered. Was this truly her success, or merely the image others wanted her to maintain? In the evenings, Claire no longer wrote quietly in her journal. Instead, she drafted emails to brands, brainstormed video ideas, and practiced speaking naturally to the camera. The clumsy beginnings faded into a mechanical rhythm. Every time another video hit 100,000 views, Linda popped a bottle of champagne, while Claire sat silently, tapping her fingernail against her glass, wondering just when she had drifted so far from the small room, from the safe, silent pages of her notebook. When Claire's account reached 1 million followers, a major international beauty brand offered her a representation deal. $500,000. Linda's eyes filled with tears. Claire said nothing. She had stepped into the world her mother had always dreamed of. Yet inside she had never felt more hollow. Claire stared at the flashing banner announcing she'd crossed the 1 million follower mark, a tangled storm of emotions rising in her chest. Linda squeezed her hand tight, pulling her into a jubilant embrace. Claire smiled, but deep inside, that smile there was a hollow she couldn't name. The days that followed spun faster, busier. Her schedule ballooned, filming, responding to comments, signing sponsorship deals. Linda had morphed into a full-fledged manager, and she wanted more. One evening, while Claire sat scribbling video ideas into her battered notebook, Linda burst in, her face alight. "Claire, I just thought of the perfect idea to boost engagement," she said, waving her phone excitedly. Claire looked up, forcing a polite smile. A familiar unease stirred in her gut. Linda proposed that Claire start live-streaming her private moments, birthdays, anniversaries, even sadness. "People want to see the real Claire, not just Claire reading books or baking," Linda said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Claire listened in silence, her heart thudding. She had always believed that her private feelings belonged to a sacred, silent place inside her, not something to be broadcast to millions of strangers. But then, seeing the hope burning in her mother's eyes, she hesitated and nodded. One more time. And just like that, the line between Claire, the girl who dreamed freely, and Claire, the audience's darling, began to blur. She sat before the now familiar phone stand, the pale ring light casting a fragile beauty across her face. Her soft blue knit dress seemed too thin, too delicate to shield her from the swelling tide inside. "Live," Linda whispered, tapping the screen. Claire tugged a smile onto her lips. The screen lit up instantly. Messages flooding in. "Claire, love you. You're glowing today. Spill your love life, pretty please." Claire swallowed hard. It was her birthday. She should have been wrapped in the quiet love of those who truly knew her, savoring a peaceful moment like every year before. Instead, she sat here beneath hundreds of thousands of foreign eyes, pretending to be perfectly joyful, perfectly happy. Just outside the frame, Linda held up a notepad, signaling, "Talk about childhood memories. Smile more." Claire obeyed, laughing as she told a story about sneaking away from nap time to read under the covers. It sounded light and sweet, but each note of laughter felt like a blade carving into her pride. After the live stream, Linda burst into the room, electric with excitement. "You see, views tripled. I told you, sharing your real moments touches people's hearts." Claire didn't respond. She curled into the corner of her bed, hands knotted together. A few days later, Linda unveiled a new plan. Claire would livestream herself and crying. "The internet loves raw emotion, Claire. Talk about your fear of failure, about pressure, cry a little." "Don't worry, I'll coach you." Claire froze. Crying to her was sacred, a private act whispered into the dark when no one was watching. Now, her mother wanted to turn even her tears into entertainment. "Mom," Claire protested softly. "I don't know if I can do that." Linda's smile tightened. Her voice grew sharper. "If you can't, everything we've built will go to waste. People want someone real, Claire. If you keep up this perfect act, they'll get bored. You need to show them you hurt too." Claire sat there stunned. In that moment, she realized she was no longer a free person. She was a puppet, an actress in a play her mother had written. Summoning every ounce of strength, Claire filmed the emotional sharing live stream. Sitting in the dim light, she spoke about the times she felt not good enough. The tears that came weren't entirely fake, but they weren't completely real either. When the live stream ended, Linda clapped her hands, beaming like a director after a perfect performance. "Brilliant, Claire. I knew you could do it." Claire wiped her face and smiled crookedly. That night she sat awake at her vanity, staring at her red-rimmed eyes in the mirror. She didn't recognize the girl staring back. The girl who once dreamed that writing could be her escape, her freedom. Each day, new demands piled up. Cooking challenges when feeling down, storytelling about past relationships, answering the most intimate questions from strangers. Linda combed through every script, polished every line, mapped out every live stream, down to the minute. Claire, once a shy girl who loved to scribble in a worn notebook, now lived as a public figure, 24 hours a day. She no longer had time to sit by the window watching the clouds drift by, no time to weave quiet stories into her pages. Her life was measured in comments, view counts, sponsorships, and in the rare, fleeting moments she found herself alone, Claire would wonder, am I still me? But whenever she tried to voice that silent ache, the blazing ambition in Linda's eyes would rise up before her, and Claire would swallow her words, because she couldn't bear to disappoint her mother. And so, Claire kept smiling, into the camera, even as her soul quietly, steadily shattered into pieces. The live streams grew more frequent. The so-called honest shares grew deeper, more invasive. Claire felt herself drifting farther into an endless sea of invisible gazes, millions of strangers dissecting every smile, every blink, every tear she shed. At first she told herself just a little longer for Mom, for the future. But that little longer tightened around her heart day by day, squeezing the air from her lungs, stripping the freedom from her mind. Claire began to lose sleep. Night after night, she tossed and turned on her small bed, her head a frantic whirlwind of video plans, stray cruel comments buried among the praise, and a hollow emptiness she couldn't name. Panic attacks came without warning. Her heart raced, her hands turned ice cold. Waves of anxiety crashed over her, leaving her gasping, drowning in a fear she couldn't escape. One afternoon, after a live stream ran longer than scheduled, Claire collapsed into a chair, breathless and shaking. Linda entered, clutching a calendar stuffed with shooting dates and new sponsorship deals. "Start prepping for the Christmas campaign. People love festive content," Linda chirped. Claire looked up, her lips trembling. "Mom," she rasped. "I'm exhausted. I need to take a break." Linda frowned as though Claire had just said something outrageous. "You just need to push a little harder. Everyone's waiting for you." Claire clenched her fists. Part of her wanted to scream, "I can't take this anymore," but the words caught and died in her throat. The next day, Claire quietly made her way to a therapist's office. In a room bathed in soft, gentle light, Claire broke down for the first time in years, sobbing like a child. "I don't feel like myself anymore," she wept. "I'm afraid to wake up, afraid to open my phone, afraid of my own smile being torn apart." The doctor diagnosed her with severe anxiety disorder caused by prolonged stress. He prescribed a mild sedative and ordered a full month of absolute rest. For the first time in a long time, Claire felt like she had found a lifeline in the storm. She clutched the prescription as she left the clinic, carrying a fragile, desperate hope. Maybe if she could just pause, she might find herself again. But when she got home, everything fell apart. Linda was waiting at the door. At first she feigned concern, asking perfunctory questions, but when she spotted the prescription in Claire's hand, her face darkened. "What's this?" Linda snapped, snatching the paper. Claire stammered through an explanation. The panic attacks, the sleepless nights, the nameless terror strangling her. Linda crushed the paper in her hand, her mouth tight with fury. After a long, tense pause, she exhaled sharply, her voice cold. "If you start taking meds, you won't seem natural anymore. The audience will notice. They'll leave you. They want real emotions." Claire stood, frozen. "Mom," she whispered. "I need help." Linda shook her head, her voice unyielding. "You're just being weak. Be strong. Think about everything you've achieved. Think about your future." That night, Claire searched desperately for the prescription. In her desk, her bag, every drawer in her room, it was gone. Panic gripped her chest. Linda appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, her face unreadable. "I took it," she said flatly. "I'm doing this for you." Claire trembled. For the first time in her life, she saw the truth. Her mother's love wasn't just protective, it was a golden chain, locking her in a gleaming cage she hadn't realized she was trapped inside. Under the sterile glare of artificial light, Claire felt like a bird whose wings had been broken, caged behind bars too beautiful to tear down. That night, Claire curled into herself on her bed, holding her shaking body tight. In the dark, she whispered to the only person left who might still hear her, "This isn't the life I dreamed of." And in that fragile, aching moment, something small, a sliver of rebellion, began to take root inside her. These days, Claire moved like a ghost through the house, drifting silently beneath the harsh glare of artificial light. Outside, the world continued to spin. New contracts, endless brand deals, live streams bursting with adoration. But inside, Claire withered a little more each day. That afternoon, a misty rain tapped against the windows. Claire sat by the glass, watching raindrops streak down the pane, her heart as empty and grey as the sky beyond. Linda was out. In this rare sliver of solitude, free from surveillance and demands, Claire rose and wandered into her mother's office, searching for something, anything, that might anchor her to the last shred of herself. She pulled open a wooden desk drawer. In the jumble of papers, something caught her eye. A thick envelope, unsealed. A strange, gnawing instinct made her reach for it, fingers trembling slightly. She drew out the stack of documents inside, and the bolded title struck her like a slap. Claire Eden Brand TM. Image rights transfer agreement. Her heart thudded painfully. Page after page, she flipped through the contract with shaking hands. Clauses outlining perpetual commercial rights, exclusive content ownership, endless image exploitation. At the bottom of each sheet, Linda's signature, crisp, decisive. Not once did Claire's name appear. Not once had she been asked. Not once had she been given the chance to say no. The air in the room thickened, pressing in on her, squeezing the breath from her lungs. Claire stumbled backward, the contract slipping from her hands, scattering across the floor like a fallen verdict. She walked out of the office in a daze, down the long, dim hallway, past the relentless ticking of the clock until she reached the living room. Linda sat there, comfortably sprawled on the sofa, her eyes glued to her phone, her lips moving silently as she counted each new follower. Rolling in, Claire stood there for a long moment, the only sound the frantic pounding of her own heart. Finally she spoke, her voice thin and trembling, a raw plea. "Mom, why?" Linda looked up, startled at first to see the papers in Claire's hands. But in a blink she recovered, her usual polished calm slipping back into place. She rose and approached as if she still held the reins. "I did what's best for your future," Linda said soothingly, as if coaxing a stubborn child. Claire shook her head, her eyes stinging. "You sold me." "I protected you," Linda corrected, her tone cool, her eyes glinting with steel. "The world out there is brutal. If you don't seize this chance, you'll regret it." The floor seemed to tilt under Claire's feet. For years she had fought to believe that every push, every demand had been rooted in love. But now the curtain had fallen away, and all that remained was a brutal truth. She wasn't Linda's daughter anymore. She was a brand, Claire Eden Tim, sculpted, packaged, and delivered into the hands of a cold, hungry media machine. Claire looked at the woman who once held her through stormy nights, who once sang her to sleep and felt a distance so vast it swallowed the girl she had been. "I don't belong to you," Claire whispered, each word ripping from her chest like a blade. "I am my own." Linda blinked, a flicker of something, doubt, fear, flashing across her face. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by something harder, colder. "Don't be stupid, Claire," she snapped. "Without me, you are nothing." Those words, the final blow, shattered the last fragile thread holding Claire back. She gripped the crumpled contract in her hand, feeling a wild, unfamiliar strength rise up from the deepest, most broken parts of her. Enough. It was time. The room around Claire buzzed faintly under the cold yellow light. From outside, the night wind howled in low, mournful waves, a distant call from a place she had long forgotten. Claire stood by the open suitcase on her bed, her hands trembling as she folded each item. Not much, just a few worn clothes, a battered leather notebook, an old silver pen, and a faded photo of herself as a little girl, cradling a stray cat. Each piece she packed felt like severing a thread she had once clung to with all her heart. From the living room, Linda's voice floated in, bright and sharp, chattering away on the phone with a new business partner. She didn't notice or didn't care that her daughter was quietly erasing herself from her life. Claire bit her lip until she tasted blood, choking back the sob that clawed at her throat. She knew, once she walked out, there would be no coming back. Whatever bond had once tied them, love, hope, need, had long since rotted away, leaving only cold, rusted chains of control and exploitation. On her desk, Claire laid out a blank sheet of paper. The pen in her hand felt heavy, as if each stroke might pull her soul from her body. I will find myself again. Even if no one else believes in me, I will still walk forward. 3 short lines, written with every shred of pain, anger, and forgotten love she had left. She folded the note and placed it carefully atop her old notebook, a final message to the childhood she was leaving behind. Claire slung the backpack over her shoulder and stepped into the hallway. Each footfall echoed through the silent house like a farewell. On the walls, photo frames lined up like a gallery. Claire smiling, Claire laughing. Claire crafted perfectly for the world's approval. There were no pictures of Claire crying, none of Claire alone. She walked past them without looking back. At the door, Claire paused, a brief, aching moment. A small part of her, the frightened child who once clung desperately to her mother, wanted to turn back to beg for one last embrace. But then she remembered Linda's words, "Without me, you are nothing." Claire tightened her grip on the backpack strap, opened the door and stepped out. The night swallowed her whole. A misty rain sifted through the air like a breath. The streetlights blurred into golden smudges through the drizzle. Distant and lonely, Claire pulled her jacket tight around her and broke into a run. At first her steps were unsure, faltering, but then faster, stronger. Each stride tore away a piece of fear. Each breath was a silent scream at the life she was leaving behind. Behind her, the house still gleamed like a pristine, hollow picture. Claire knew Linda would soon discover her absence. She would call, she would rage, but Claire had left her phone behind. The last train would be leaving soon. She crossed empty streets, her pants soaked to the hem, her lungs burning. But it wasn't exhaustion that filled her chest. It was a tidal wave of feeling. Grief, terror, exhilaration, freedom. By the time she stumbled into the station, Claire could barely stand. But her eyes were burning bright for the first time in what felt like forever. No one noticed her. No immaculate makeup, no studio lights, no forced smiles. Just Claire, drenched, shivering, but alive. The whistle blew. Claire boarded the last car and sank into a seat by the window. She leaned her forehead against the cold glass and watched as the dim lights of the station began to slide away. As the train pulled into the darkness, Claire closed her eyes. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't know what she would do. But for the first time, she was certain of one thing. Even if no one else believed in her, Claire would believe in herself. And so she left. No goodbyes, no permission, carrying only her beating heart and a soul she had finally, fiercely reclaimed. The train rumbled past low hills and endless pine forests, then slowed to a stop at a quiet little town cradled in a valley. The drizzle had long since faded, leaving the cobblestone streets glistening under a sun so thin it seemed woven from silk. Claire stepped off the near-empty platform, her backpack heavy on her shoulders, but her heart astonishingly light. This town, with its squat wooden houses, its weathered shop fronts, its cozy little cafes, this was where she had grown up, where she had dreamed, where she had once written her very first words. No one here recognized her. No one knew that only months ago she had been Claire Eden, a name on the lips of millions. Here she was simply a young woman returning from the storm. Claire wandered the old streets, her shoes soaked and muddy. She paused before a faded, red brick building, the town library. The battered wooden door creaked open, releasing the musty perfume of old paper and worn leather. Claire almost cried from the flood of memories. The towering shelves were still there, the scratched wooden tables, the velvet-covered chairs where she had once spent whole afternoons lost in other worlds. Behind the counter, an elderly woman, with hair as soft and white as cotton, looked up and smiled kindly. "Can I help you, dear?" she asked. Claire nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I'm looking for work. Anything. Shelving, cleaning. As long as I can stay here. The woman studied her for a long moment, as if seeing the cracks beneath. Claire's calm surface, and then simply nodded. You're welcome to stay. And so Claire stayed. Each morning she swept the aisles heavy with the dust of forgotten years. She carefully straightened neglected books, smoothing their worn pages with reverent hands. In the afternoons, as the golden light spilled through the stained windows, Claire sat alone at a wooden table by the window. She opened her battered brown notebook, the silver pen resting easy in her hand, and, for the first time in what felt like forever, she wrote, "No pressure to impress." No fear of judgment, just small simple stories flowing straight from her heart onto the page. Stories about a little girl who found a lost cat in the rain, about a kind old librarian guarding a kingdom of stories, about quiet acts of kindness in a noisy, careless world. With each word, each sentence, Claire stitched a small piece of her soul back together. Time no longer moved in followers or views or glittering empty numbers. She measured her days by the scent of old books, the patter of rain against the library roof, the quiet bloom of peace that filled her chest whenever she wrote something true. One evening, as the sunset turned the sky to a soft violet gold, Claire looked up from her notebook. She gazed out the window at the drifting clouds, her heart perfectly still. And she smiled, a real smile, unforced, unbidden, entirely her own. Sometimes, what we lose isn't our freedom, but our honesty with our own soul. And Claire, finally, quietly, had found her way back to it. There are wounds no one sees, battles we fight quietly, alone. In a noisy, demanding world, staying true to your own soul, that is the truest freedom of all. Claire chose to leave the glittering lights behind to reclaim honesty in every breath, every dream. Her story reminds us, no one has the right to define your worth but you. You don't have to become the version of yourself that others expect. True happiness blooms only when you dare to live as your most authentic self. Thank you for staying with Claire, and with this little story song all the way to the end. We hope Claire's journey touched your heart, just as it touched ours in the telling. If you love healing, heartfelt and inspiring stories like this one, don't forget to hit subscribe on our channel so you won't miss the next journey. And remember, in a world full of expectations, you always deserve to simply be yourself.